The old church on Miller Street had seen better days. Its wooden doors were cracked, the paint was peeling off the walls, and the roof leaked whenever it rained too hard. But inside, there was something that still held its beauty. A piano. A grand piano that sat near the altar, dusty but proud, waiting for someone to bring it back to life. And every Sunday afternoon, someone did. Her name was Lena. She was 53 years old. A retired school teacher who had spent most of her life teaching children how to read and write. But her true love had always been music. She had learned piano from her grandmother when she was just 6 years old, sitting on a small wooden stool, barely able to reach the keys. Now, decades later, music was the only thing that kept her going. 2 years ago, Lena lost her husband to a sudden heart attack. They had been married for 28 years. He was the kind of man who laughed at his own jokes, who made her coffee every morning without being asked, and who always told her she played piano better than anyone he had ever heard. When he died, a part of her died too. The house felt too big. The silence felt too loud. And the days stretched on like empty roads with no end in sight. So she started coming to this old church, not for prayers, not for sermons, just for the piano, every Sunday. After the morning service ended and the last of the churchgoers went home, Lena would walk in through the back door. She would sit on the creaky bench, lift the cover off the keys, and play. Sometimes she played hymns. Sometimes she played old songs her grandmother had taught her. And sometimes she just let her fingers wander, creating melodies that had no name but carried all her sadness. No one ever came to listen, and that was fine with her. She was not playing for an audience. She was playing for herself, for her memories, for the man who used to sit beside her and close his eyes while she played. It was a cold October afternoon when everything changed. The sky outside was gray, heavy with clouds that threatened rain. Lena had arrived at the church a little earlier than usual. She wiped the dust off the piano with her handkerchief, sat down, and began to play a slow, soft piece. The notes floated through the empty church like whispers, bouncing off the stained glass windows and settling into the silence. She was halfway through the song when she heard the door creak open. Lena did not stop playing. She assumed it was the pastor or one of the cleaning staff. But when she glanced over her shoulder, she saw something unexpected. A man stood at the back of the church near the last row of wooden pews. He looked to be in his early 40s, with tired eyes and a face that carried the weight of too many sleepless nights. His clothes were simple, a faded jacket and worn-out shoes. But it was not the man who caught Lena's attention. It was the little boy standing beside him. The child was small, maybe 7 or 8 years old. He had messy, brown hair and a thin frame, like he had not been eating enough. His hand was wrapped tightly around his father's fingers, holding on as if he was afraid to let go. And his eyes, they were open but unfocused. They stared straight ahead, seeing nothing. Lena understood immediately. The boy was blind. She kept playing, though her heart had softened. She watched them from the corner of her eye. The man did not move. He just stood there, holding his son's hand, listening. And the boy had the strangest expression on his face. It was not sadness. It was not confusion. It was wonder. Pure, quiet wonder. When Lena finished the piece, she let her hands rest on the keys. The final note faded into silence. She turned around slowly, ready to greet them, maybe offer them a seat closer to the front. But before she could say a word, the man gave a small nod, whispered something to his son, and the two of them slipped out the door as quietly as they had come. Lena sat there for a long moment, staring at the empty doorway. She did not know who they were. She did not know why they had come, but something about that little boy's face stayed with her. That look of wonder. That small smile that had appeared when the music filled the room. She thought about them all week. The next Sunday, Lena arrived at the church even earlier. She told herself it was because she wanted more time to practice. But deep down, she knew the truth. She was hoping they would come back, and they did. Same time, same spot. The man and his son stood at the back of the church, just like before. The boy's head was tilted slightly to the side, as if he was trying to hear every single note more clearly. His fingers moved a little, tapping softly against his leg, as if he was playing along in his mind. Lena played longer that day. She chose happier songs, lighter melodies, and every now and then she would glance back and see the boy smiling. When she finished, the same thing happened. The man nodded. The boy whispered something, and they left without a word. This continued for 3 more Sundays. Every week they came. Every week they stood in the back. Every week they left before Lena could speak to them. It drove her crazy. Not in a bad way, but in a curious way. Who were they? Why did they come? Why did they never stay? On the 5th Sunday, Lena made a decision. She was not going to let them leave this time. She needed to know their story. She played a short piece that day, something quick and simple. And the moment she hit the last note, she stood up from the bench and turned around. The man looked startled. The boy tilted his head, sensing something was different. Lena smiled gently and took a few steps forward. She did not want to scare them. She kept her voice soft and warm. "You do not have to stand all the way back there," she said. "There is a bench right here, near the piano. You can sit closer if you like." The man hesitated. He looked down at his son, unsure of what to do. But the boy tugged at his father's hand. His face lit up with excitement. He whispered something that Lena could not hear, but whatever it was, it made the father's shoulders relax just a little. Slowly, carefully, they walked forward. The boy's steps were small and cautious. He held onto his father with one hand and reached out with the other, feeling the air in front of him. When they reached the front pew, the man helped his son sit down. Then he sat beside him, keeping one arm around the boy's shoulder. Lena looked at them both. Up close, she could see the dark circles under the father's eyes. She could see the patches on the boy's jacket stitched by hand. She could see the love between them, quiet but strong. "My name is Lena," she said softly. "I come here every Sunday to play. I have seen you both a few times now." The man nodded slowly. "I am Raymond," he said. His voice was low and tired. "And this is my son, Tommy." The boy turned his face toward the sound of her voice. He could not see her, but he smiled anyway. "I like your music," Tommy said. "It sounds like sunshine." And in that moment, Lena felt something she had not felt in 2 long years. Hope. Lena did not know what to say at first. She stood there, looking at the little boy who had just told her that her music sounded like sunshine. No one had ever described her playing that way before. Not her students. Not her friends. Not even her late husband, who had always been generous with his compliments. But this child, this boy who could not see the world around him, had found the perfect words. "Thank you, Tommy," she said softly. "That is the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me." Tommy smiled again. His smile was the kind that made you forget your troubles for a moment. It was pure and honest, the way only a child's smile can be. Raymond cleared his throat. He looked uncomfortable, like he was not used to talking to strangers. His hands were clasped together in his lap, and he kept his eyes on the floor. "We did not mean to bother you," he said quietly. "We just came to listen. Tommy, he loves music. Ever since he was little, he would stop whatever he was doing whenever he heard a song. It calms him down, makes him happy." Lena nodded slowly. She pulled a chair from the side and sat down across from them, giving them space but staying close enough to talk. "You are not bothering me at all," she said. "I play alone every week. It is nice to have someone listening for a change." Raymond looked up at her for the first time. His eyes were filled with something heavy, something that went beyond tiredness. It was the look of a man who had been carrying a burden for too long without anyone to help. "Can I ask," Lena said gently, "how long has Tommy been unable to see?" Raymond took a deep breath. He glanced at his son, who was running his small fingers along the edge of the wooden pew, feeling the texture of the old wood. "Since birth," Raymond said. "The doctors told us when he was just a few months old. Something went wrong during the pregnancy. His eyes, they never developed the way they should have. They said there was nothing they could do." Lena felt a lump form in her throat. She could not imagine what it must be like for a parent to hear those words. To know that your child would never see the sky, Never see the flowers, never see your face. I am so sorry, she whispered. Raymond shook his head. Do not be. Tommy does not feel sorry for himself. He never has. He finds joy in things most people do not even notice. The sound of rain on the roof, the smell of bread baking in the morning, the feeling of grass under his feet. He paused and looked at his son with so much love that it made Lena's heart ache. He is stronger than me. Always has been. Tommy turned his head toward his father's voice. Papa, can I touch the piano? The question was simple, but it carried so much longing. Lena could hear it in the boy's voice. This was not just curiosity. This was a dream. She stood up immediately. Of course you can. Raymond looked uncertain. Are you sure? We do not want to impose. You are not imposing, Lena said firmly. Come, let me show him. She walked over to the piano and waited. Raymond helped Tommy stand and guided him slowly across the floor. The boy's steps were careful and measured. He trusted his father completely, letting himself be led without fear. When they reached the piano, Lena gently took Tommy's hand. His fingers were small and thin, slightly cold from the chilly air inside the church. She placed his hand on the surface of the piano, letting him feel the smooth wood. This is the top, she explained. It is made of wood, very old wood. This piano has been here for almost 60 years. Tommy's fingers moved slowly, exploring every inch. He touched the curves, the edges, the small scratches that time had left behind. His face was full of concentration, like he was building a picture in his mind. Now, Lena said, let me show you the keys. She guided his hand down to the keyboard. When his fingers touched the keys for the first time, he let out a small gasp. It was the sound of someone discovering something magical. They are smooth, he whispered, and cold. Yes, Lena said with a smile. The white ones are smooth. The black ones are a little thinner and raised higher. Can you feel the difference? Tommy moved his fingers carefully from one key to another. White, black, white, black. His brow furrowed in concentration as he memorized the pattern. Can I press one? He asked. Go ahead. Tommy pressed down on a single key. A note rang out through the empty church, clear and bright. The sound echoed off the walls and filled the silence. The boy's face lit up like the sun breaking through clouds. I made that sound, he said, his voice filled with disbelief. I made music. Lena felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. She blinked them away quickly, not wanting to cry in front of them. But it was hard. There was something so beautiful about this moment, something so pure and untouched by the hardness of the world. You did, she said, and you can make more. Here, try pressing a few keys together. She guided his hand, showing him how to press 2 keys at once, then 3. Each combination created a different sound, a different feeling. Tommy listened with his whole body, leaning forward. His ears tuned to every vibration. Raymond stood a few feet away, watching in silence. His eyes were wet, but he did not wipe them. He just watched his son experience something he had never been able to give him. After a while, Tommy pulled his hands back and turned toward his father. Papa, I want to learn, he said. I want to learn how to play like the lady. Ramon's face fell. Not because he did not want his son to learn, but because he knew he could not make it happen. Lena could see the struggle in his eyes, the shame, the helplessness. Tommy, Raymond said quietly, lessons cost money, and we do not have a piano at home. Maybe someday, but not right now. The boy's shoulders dropped just a little. He did not argue. He did not cry. He just nodded slowly, like he understood, like he had heard those words before. Lena's heart broke. She looked at this father who worked so hard and still could not give his son the one thing he wanted. She looked at this boy who had every reason to be angry at the world but chose to smile instead. And she made a decision right there, without thinking twice. I will teach him, she said. Raymond looked at her like she had spoken a foreign language. What? I will teach Tommy how to play the piano. Every Sunday. Right here. No money, no payment. Just lessons. Raymond shook his head quickly. No, we cannot accept that. You do not even know us. That is too much." "It is not too much," Lena said firmly. "I have been playing alone in this church for 2 years. I lost my husband, and music became my only friend. But now, maybe it can be something more. Maybe I can share it with someone who truly loves it." She looked at Tommy, who was facing her direction with wide, hopeful eyes. "Would you like that, Tommy? Would you like me to teach you?" The boy nodded so fast that his whole body shook. "Yes, yes, please." More than anything, Ramon opened his mouth to protest again, but Lena raised her hand gently. "Let me do this," she said quietly. "Not for charity, not out of pity, but because I think we all need this. You, me, and Tommy." For a long moment, Raymond said nothing. He looked at his son. He looked at the piano. He looked at this stranger who had just offered them a gift worth more than money. Finally, he nodded. His voice was thick when he spoke. "Thank you," he said. "I do not know how to repay you." Lena smiled. "Just bring him every Sunday. That is all I ask." And so it was settled. The lessons would begin the following week. A retired teacher, a blind boy, and a piano that had been waiting 60 years for this very moment. None of them knew it yet, but their lives were about to change in ways they could never have imagined. The first lesson did not go the way Lena had planned. She had spent the entire week preparing. She pulled out her old teaching books, the ones she had used years ago when she gave piano lessons to children in her neighborhood. She made notes. She practiced explanations. She thought she was ready, but when Tommy sat down at the piano that Sunday, Lena realized something important. Everything she had prepared was useless. All her books, all her methods, they were made for children who could see. Children who could watch her hands and copy what she did. Children who could read the notes on a page. Tommy could do none of those things. For the first 20 minutes, Lena struggled. She tried to explain where to place his fingers, but her words only confused him. She tried to guide his hands, but he could not understand what she wanted him to do. The boy grew frustrated. His small shoulders tensed up, and his lips pressed together in a thin line. Raymond watched from the back pew, his face tight with worry. He looked like he wanted to step in and help, but he did not know how. Lena took a deep breath. She closed her eyes for a moment and thought about her grandmother, the woman who had taught her to play all those years ago. Her grandmother had never used fancy methods or expensive books. She had simply played, and Lena had watched and learned. But Tommy could not watch. Then an idea came to her. "Tommy," she said gently, "give me your hands." The boy hesitated for a moment, then held out his small hands. Lena took them in hers. His fingers were cold and trembling slightly. "I am going to place your hands on top of mine," she explained, "and then I am going to play. I want you to feel what my fingers do. Feel how they move. Feel where they go. Can you do that?" Tommy nodded slowly. Lena positioned his hands carefully on top of her own. His palms rested against the backs of her hands, and his fingers curled lightly over hers. Then she began to play. It was a simple melody, just 5 notes repeated in a pattern. Her fingers moved slowly, pressing each key with care. And as she played, she felt Tommy's hands following along. His fingers twitched and shifted, trying to memorize the movement. His breath slowed down. His body relaxed. When she finished, she lifted her hands away. "Now you try," she said. Tommy placed his fingers on the keys. He was uncertain at first, searching for the right position. But then he pressed down. One note, then another. Then another. It was not perfect. He hit a wrong key twice. But by the end, he had played the melody. All 5 notes in the right order. His face broke into the biggest smile Lena had ever seen. "I did it," he whispered. "I really did it." Lena laughed. A real laugh that came from somewhere deep inside her. "Yes, you did." And that was only the first lesson. From that day on, they developed their own method. Every Sunday, Lena would play with Tommy's hands resting on hers. She would let him feel the rhythm, the spacing, the pressure of each note, and then he would try on his own. Over and over again until his fingers knew the way by heart. It was slow at first. Some songs took weeks to learn, But Tommy never complained. He never gave up. He practiced in his mind during the week, moving his fingers in the air, imagining the piano beneath them. And every Sunday, he came back a little better than before. By the end of the second month, he could play 3 full songs without any help. Lena was amazed. In all her years of teaching, she had never seen anyone learn so fast. Most children needed months just to get comfortable with the keys, but Tommy absorbed everything like a sponge. He listened with his whole body. He remembered every detail. And he played with a feeling that most adults could never achieve. One Sunday, after a particularly good lesson, Raymond stayed behind while Tommy rested on the front pew, tired but happy. "I do not know how to thank you," Raymond said quietly. He stood near the window, looking out at the gray sky. "You have given him something I never could." Lena shook her head. "You give him everything, Raymond. You bring him here every week. You work hard to take care of him. That is more than enough." Raymond was silent for a moment. Then he spoke again, his voice low and heavy. "His mother left when he was 2 years old." Lena felt her heart tighten. She did not say anything. She just waited. When the doctors told us Tommy would never see, she could not handle it. She said she was not strong enough. She said she needed a different life. He paused, his jaw clenching. She walked out one morning and never came back. No letter, no phone call, nothing. Lena watched him carefully. She could see the old pain in his eyes, the kind of wound that never fully heals. "I was angry for a long time," Raymond continued. Angry at her. Angry at the world. Angry at myself for not being able to fix things. But then I looked at my son, this little boy who could not see anything but still smiled every single day, and I realized I had no right to be angry. I had to be strong for him. He turned to face Lena. "Worked 2 jobs. Night shifts at a warehouse and morning shifts at a grocery store. I sleep maybe 4 hours a night. But every Sunday, I bring him here. Because this is the only thing that makes him truly happy." Lena felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She did not bother wiping them away. "You are a good father, Raymond," she said softly. "The best kind." He shook his head. "I am just trying to survive. One day at a time." Lena walked over to him and placed a gentle hand on his arm. "That is all any of us can do." For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stood there. 2 people who had both known loss, both known pain. Both learned to keep going even when the road seemed impossible. Then Tommy's voice broke the silence. "Papa, can we come back next week too?" Raymond smiled, the first real smile Lena had seen from him. "Yes, buddy. We will come back every week." As the weeks turned into months, something unexpected began to happen. The lessons stopped being just about music. They became something more. A connection. A friendship. A family that none of them had planned for. Lena started bringing snacks for Tommy. Homemade cookies, sandwiches, fruit she had cut into small pieces. She told herself it was because the boy looked too thin. But really it was because she wanted to take care of him, Raymond started, arriving a few minutes early to help Lena set up the piano bench and arrange the chairs. He did not say much, but his presence was warm and steady. He fixed a broken hinge on the church door one day without being asked. He carried Lena's bag to her car when the lessons ended. And Tommy, sweet Tommy, started calling her Miss Lena, then just Lena. And one day, without thinking, he called her something else. "Thank you, Grandma." He caught himself immediately and looked embarrassed. "I am sorry. I did not mean to say that," but Lena just smiled through her tears and hugged him tight. "You can call me that anytime you want," she whispered. The old church on Miller Street had been empty and forgotten for so long. But now, every Sunday, it was filled with music and laughter and love. 3 broken people had found each other in the most unexpected way. And the piano, that dusty old piano, had finally found its purpose again. 6 months had passed since the first lesson. Winter had arrived, and the old church on Miller Street was colder than ever. But inside, something warm was growing. Something that had nothing to do with the weather. Tommy could now play 7 complete songs from memory. His fingers moved across the keys with a confidence that amazed everyone who heard him. He no longer needed Lena to guide his hands. He knew the piano like an old friend. Every curve, every key, every sound it could make. One afternoon in early December, the pastor of the church stopped by during their lesson. He was an older man with kind eyes and a gentle voice. He stood at the back and listened as Tommy played a slow, beautiful melody that Lena had taught him just 2 weeks before. When the song ended, the pastor walked forward with a wide smile on his face. "That was wonderful," he said. "Truly wonderful." Tommy turned his head toward the voice. "Thank you, sir." The pastor looked at Lena with an expression she could not quite read. "I have an idea," he said. "Every year, we hold a Christmas concert here at the church. People from all over the town come to watch. We have a choir, a few musicians, and some readings from the Bible. But this year, I would like to add something special." Oh. Lena felt her heart skip a beat. She already knew what he was going to say. "I would like Tommy to perform," the pastor continued. "A solo piece on the piano, right here in front of everyone." The room went silent. Raymond, who had been sitting quietly in his usual spot, stood up immediately. "I do not think that is a good idea," he said. His voice was tight, protective. "Tommy has never played in front of anyone except us. That is a lot of pressure for a young boy." The pastor nodded slowly. "I understand your concern, but I have watched this child play for the past few months. He has a gift, and I believe the world deserves to see it." Tommy sat very still on the piano bench. His hands rested on his lap, and his face was unreadable. Lena knelt down beside him. "Tommy, what do you think? Would you like to play for other people?" The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice small but steady. "Will you be there, Lena? And Papa?" "Of course," Lena said. "We will be right there with you." The whole time, Tommy took a deep breath. Then he nodded. "Okay, I will do it." Raymond opened his mouth to protest, but something in his son's voice stopped him. He looked at the boy, really looked at him, and saw something he had not seen before. Courage. Quiet. Unshakable courage. He closed his mouth, sat back down. The next 3 weeks were the most intense of their journey together. Lena and Tommy practiced every day, not just on Sundays. Raymond adjusted his work schedule so he could bring Tommy to the church in the evenings. They went over the song again and again until Tommy could play it perfectly without a single mistake. The song they chose was called Amazing Grace. It was simple but powerful, a melody that everyone knew, but one that could still move hearts when played with feeling. Tommy practiced until his fingers ached. He practiced until he could hear the song in his sleep. And through it all, he never once complained. The night of the concert arrived faster than anyone expected. The church was transformed. Candles flickered on every windowsill. A large Christmas tree stood near the altar, decorated with handmade ornaments. The wooden pews were filled with people, more than 200 of them, dressed in their best clothes and buzzing with excitement. Backstage, in a small room behind the altar, Tommy sat on a wooden chair. His hands were shaking. His face was pale. He could not see the crowd, but he could hear them. The murmuring, the laughter, the shuffling of feet. The sounds filled his ears and made his heart pound. "There are so many people," he whispered. "What if I make a mistake? What if I forget the notes?" Lena knelt in front of him and took his trembling hands in hers. "Listen to me, Tommy," she said gently. "You have played this song 100 times. Your fingers know it better than your mind does. When you sit at that piano, do not think about the people. Do not think about the mistakes. Just close your eyes and play. Play like you always do. Play like it is just you and me in the empty church." Tommy swallowed hard. "But what if they do not like it?" "They will love it," Lena said firmly, "because you are not just playing notes. You are playing your heart, and that is something no one can ever criticize." Raymond stepped forward. He had been standing in the corner, watching silently. Now he knelt beside Lena and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Tommy," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "I have watched you play 100 times, and every single time you made me believe in something again. You made me believe that good things can still happen. that miracles are real. He paused, his eyes glistening. No matter what happens out there, I am proud of you. I will always be proud of you. Tommy reached out and found his father's face. His small fingers touched Raymond's cheek and felt the tears that were already falling. "Do not cry, Papa," he said softly. "I will make you proud. I promise." A few minutes later, the pastor stepped onto the stage and announced the final performance of the evening. The crowd grew quiet. All eyes turned toward the piano. Lena walked out first, holding Tommy's hand. She guided him slowly across the stage, making sure he did not trip on the steps. The audience watched in silence. Some of them whispered to each other, wondering who this small boy was and why he was being led so carefully. When they reached the piano, Lena helped Tommy onto the bench. She adjusted his position, making sure he was comfortable. Then she leaned close to his ear. "You are ready," she whispered. "I believe in you." She stepped back and disappeared. Into the shadows at the side of the stage, Tommy sat alone under the warm glow of the spotlight. He could feel the heat on his skin. He could hear the silence of 200 people holding their breath. His heart was beating so loud he thought everyone could hear it. He placed his fingers on the keys, and then he began to play. The first note rang out clear and pure, filling the church like a bell. Then came the second note, and the third, and the fourth. The melody of Amazing Grace rose into the air, gentle and strong at the same time. Tommy played with his eyes closed, though it made no difference. He played with his whole body, swaying slightly with the rhythm. His fingers danced across the keys like they had done it 1,000 times before, and somewhere in the middle of the song, his voice joined in. Soft and sweet, he began to sing the words, "Amazing Grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me." The audience was frozen. No one moved. No one breathed. They watched this blind boy pour his soul into the music. Something inside each of them began to break open. When the final note faded into silence, there was a moment of stillness, a single heartbeat of quiet, and then the church exploded with applause. People rose to their feet. They clapped and cheered and wiped tears from their eyes. The sound was deafening, a wave of love and admiration that washed over the entire room. Tommy could not see the standing ovation, but he could feel it, the thunder of hands, the vibration of joy in the air, the warmth of hundreds of hearts reaching out to him. In the back pew, Raymond stood with tears streaming down his face. He did not try to hide them anymore. He just let them fall, grateful and broken and whole all at once. His son had done it. His beautiful, brave, blind son had shown the world what was possible the night of the Christmas. Concert changed everything. Word spread quickly through the small town. People talked about the blind boy who had played piano like an angel. They talked about his voice, soft and pure, singing Amazing Grace with more feeling than most adults could ever manage. They talked about the tears they had shed, the goosebumps on their arms, the way their hearts had felt full and broken at the same time. Within a week, Tommy had become something of a local celebrity. Strangers stopped Raymond on the street to shake his hand. Neighbors who had never spoken to them before knocked on their door with casseroles and homemade pies. The local newspaper ran a small story about the boy and his remarkable talent. And the church, which had been half empty for years, suddenly had more visitors than it knew what to do with. But for Tommy, none of that mattered. What mattered was that he had done it. He had stood on that stage, alone in the darkness that was always with him, and he had played. He had shown the world that being blind did not mean being broken, that not seeing did not mean not feeling, that the music inside him was bigger than any limitation the world could put on him. The Sunday after the concert, Tommy arrived at the church with a new energy. He practically ran to the piano, his fingers eager to touch the keys again. "I want to learn more songs," he said excitedly. "I want to learn everything you can teach me, Lena." Lena laughed and ruffled his hair. "Slow down, little one. We have plenty of time." She understood his excitement. She felt it too. The concert had awakened something in both of them. A hunger to create more, to share more, to reach higher than they ever had before. So they dove in. Over the next few months, Lena taught Tommy more complex pieces. She introduced him to different styles of music: classical, jazz, blues, gospel. Each one presented new challenges, new rhythms, new ways of expressing emotion through the keys, and Tommy absorbed it all. He learned to play songs that grown musicians struggled with. He developed his own style, a way of playing that was uniquely his. He added little flourishes and variations that Lena had never taught him. He was not just copying anymore. He was creating. By spring, he could play more than 20 songs from memory. And he had started composing his own melodies, simple tunes that he hummed while walking and then figured out on the piano. One afternoon, after a particularly long lesson, Lena sat back and watched Tommy play a piece he had written himself. It was a gentle melody, full of rises and falls, like waves on a quiet ocean. When he finished, she had tears in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she said. "What do you call it?" Tommy thought for a moment. "I call it home." "Home," Lena repeated. "Why that name?" The boy smiled, his sightless eyes looking somewhere far away. "Because that is what I feel when I am here. With you and Papa, this is my home now." Lena could not speak. Her throat was too tight. She simply reached out and pulled Tommy into a hug, holding him close. Raymond had been watching from the back pew, as he always did. When Lena looked up, she saw him wiping his eyes with the back of his hand. He tried to look away quickly, embarrassed, but she had already seen later that evening, after Tommy had fallen asleep on the front pew. Raymond and Lena sat together near the window. The sun was setting, casting long golden rays through the stained glass. The colors danced on the wooden floor like scattered jewels. "He has grown so much," Raymond said quietly. "Sometimes I cannot believe he is the same boy I brought here a year ago." Lena nodded. "He has a gift. A real gift. I have taught many children in my life, but none like him." Raymond was silent for a moment. Then he turned to face her. "It is not just his playing that has changed," he said. "It is everything. The way he walks, the way he talks, the way he laughs." He paused. "You did that, Lena. You gave him confidence. You gave him a reason to believe in himself." Lena shook her head. "I only taught him piano. You are the one who raised him. You are the one who never gave up on him." Raymond looked down at his hands. They were rough and calloused from years of hard work. Hands that had never held anything delicate or beautiful except for his son. "I almost did give up once," he admitted. "After his mother left, there were days when I did not know how to keep going. I would lie awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was enough, wondering if I could ever give him the life he deserved." He looked at Lena, his eyes raw and honest. "But then I found this church, and I found you. And suddenly, everything felt possible again." Lena reached out and placed her hand over his. "We found each other," she said softly. "All three of us. And I think that is exactly what was supposed to happen." They sat in comfortable silence as the last light of day faded from the windows. As the months passed, the bond between them grew stronger. What had started as piano lessons had become something much deeper. They were a family now. Even if they had never said the words out loud, Sundays were no longer just about music. After the lessons, they would sit together and share a meal that Lena had prepared. Simple food, sandwiches, soup, fresh fruit. But it was never about the food. It was about being together, laughing together, talking about nothing and everything. Raymond started opening up more. He told Lena about his childhood, growing up poor in a small town where dreams were considered luxuries. He told her about the day Tommy was born, how he had held his tiny son in his arms and promised to protect him forever. He told her about the dark years after his wife left, how he had learned to cook and clean and do all the things he had never done before, and Lena shared her own stories. She told Raymond about her husband, the man she had loved for almost 3 decades. She told him about the emptiness she had felt after he died, how the house had seemed too quiet, how the days had seemed too long. She told him about finding solace in the old church piano, playing for no one but herself and her memories. They understood each other in a way that felt rare and precious. Two people who had been broken by life, but had somehow found the strength to keep going. Two people who had been alone for too long and had finally found someone who saw them for who they really were. Tommy noticed the change too. He could not see the way his father looked at Lena, but he could hear it in his voice. The softness, the warmth, the happiness that had not been there before. One night, as Raymond tucked him into bed, Tommy asked a question that caught his father off guard. "Papa, do you love Lena?" Raymond froze. He had not expected this. He sat on the edge of the bed and thought carefully about how to answer. "Why do you ask?" he said finally. "Because you sound different when you talk to her," Tommy said simply. "Your voice gets softer. And you laugh more? You never used to laugh." Raymond smiled in the darkness. His son could not see, but he noticed everything. "Yes," he admitted quietly. "I think I do love her." Tommy reached out and found his father's hand. "Then you should tell her. It is not that simple, buddy." Raymond sighed. "Because love is complicated. Because I do not know if she feels the same way. Because I am afraid of ruining what we already have." Tommy squeezed his hand. "But what if she feels the same way? What if you do not tell her and you miss your chance?" Raymond had no answer for that. He kissed his son on the forehead, said goodnight, and walked out of the room. But Tommy's words stayed with him. They echoed in his mind for days, refusing to be silenced. The following Sunday, everything felt different. Raymond arrived at the church earlier than usual. He had barely slept the night before. He had rehearsed what he wanted to say 100 times. But the words still felt clumsy and inadequate. Lena was already there, arranging some sheet music on the piano. She looked up and smiled when she saw him. "Oh, we're early today," she said. "Tommy is not with you?" "He is with a neighbor," Raymond replied. "I asked if she could watch him for an hour. I needed to talk to you alone." Lena's smile faded slightly. She looked concerned. "Is everything okay?" Raymond walked toward her slowly. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. His hands were sweating. He felt like a teenager again, nervous and unsure. He stopped a few feet away from her and took a deep breath. "Lena, I need to tell you something. Something I should have said a long time ago." She waited, her eyes searching his face. "When I first brought Tommy to this church, I was lost. I was tired. I was barely surviving. I had nothing left to give except my love for my son. And then I met you." He paused, trying to steady his voice. "You changed everything. You gave Tommy a gift that I could never give him. You taught him to believe in himself. You made him happy in a way I had not seen since he was a baby." Lena's eyes were glistening. She did not speak. "But it was not just Tommy you saved," Raymond continued. "It was me too. Somewhere along the way, I started looking forward to Sundays. Not because of the lessons, but because of you. Because of your smile. Because of the way you laugh. Because of the kindness in your heart that never seems to run out." He took another step closer. "Lena, I am not a rich man. I cannot give you fancy things or take you to beautiful places. All I have is a small apartment, a difficult job, and a blind son who thinks the world of you." His voice cracked slightly. "But if you will have me, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make you happy. I will love you the way you deserve to be loved. I will be there for you every single day, no matter what." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Inside was a ring. It was simple and modest, nothing like the diamonds in jewelry store windows. But it was real, and it was all he could afford. "Lena, will you marry me?" The church was completely silent. The only sound was the faint creaking of the old wooden beams above them. Lena stared at the ring. Then she looked up at Raymond. Tears were streaming down her face, but she was smiling. Smiling wider than he had ever seen. "Yes, I will marry you." Raymond let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. Then he pulled her into his arms and held her tight. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in each other's embrace, feeling the warmth of a love that had grown quietly and steadily over the past year. When they finally pulled apart, Lena laughed through her tears. "Tommy is going to be so happy," Raymond grinned. "Actually, I think he already knows. He is the one who told me to stop being afraid and just tell you how I feel." Lena shook her head in amazement. "That boy, he sees more than anyone I have ever met." An hour later, they picked up Tommy from the neighbor's house. The moment he heard their footsteps, he ran to the door. "Wait, did you tell her, Papa? Did you ask her?" Raymond laughed and scooped his son into his arms. "Yes, I asked her. And what did she say?" Lena stepped forward and placed a gentle hand on Tommy's cheek. "I said, yes, sweetheart. I am going to marry your father." Tommy's face lit up like the sun. He threw his arms around both of them, pulling them into a tight hug. "I knew it," he said, his voice muffled against their shoulders. "I knew you loved each other. I could hear it." They stood there together, the three of them, holding on to each other like they would never let go. The wedding took place 3 months later. In the same old church on Miller Street where everything had begun. The pews were filled with friends and neighbors. The pastor officiated. And the music was provided by a 9-year-old boy who sat at the piano and played a song he had written himself. He called it home. As Raymond and Lena exchanged their vows, Tommy played softly in the background. His fingers moved across the keys with love and care, filling the church with a melody that was gentle and hopeful and full of promise. When the ceremony ended, Raymond kissed his bride and then walked over to his son. He knelt down beside the piano bench and wrapped his arms around Tommy. "Thank you, buddy," he whispered, "for everything." Tommy smiled his beautiful, innocent smile. "We are a family now, right, Papa?" "Yes," Raymond said, his voice thick with emotion. "We are a family, a real family." Lena joined them, placing her hands on both their shoulders. She looked at her new husband and her new son. Her heart felt so full she thought it might burst. She had come to this church 2 years ago to escape her grief. She had played piano for no one but herself, trying to fill the silence left behind by her husband's death. She had never expected to find anything more than music within these walls. But life had other plans. She had found a little boy who could not see, but who heard the world more clearly than anyone she had ever known. She had found a father who loved his son with everything he had, and she had found a second chance at happiness. A new family built on kindness and patience and the simple magic of a shared song. The old piano had brought them together, and now it would be part of their story forever as they walked out of the church that day. Hand in hand, Tommy between them. The sun broke through the clouds and bathed them in golden light. It was a new beginning, and it was beautiful.